He's back. Yes, Chief Judge Boasberg, despite being beat up by the administration and Pam Bondi like he's some sort of judicial piñata, he's back. And he has don't poke the bear, I guess is the right way to continue to mix my metaphors. He is back, and he's reopened his criminal contempt proceedings against the Trump administration. Look out, Kristi Noem. He's coming for you. Look out, Emil Bove, Third Circuit Court of Appeals judge. Oh, this is like The Godfather. Oh, you thought you could fool a Corleone? You thought by going up to the Third Circuit, you'd get away from Judge Boasberg? No, you're not. We're going to find out once and for all why planes filled with men to violate their due process rights, to violate federal jurisdiction, were sent to El Salvador. And Judge Boasberg is going to get to the bottom of it. I tell you right now, I update you about this very important case on the Intersection podcast. And here's a clip. Let's move to the revival of Judge Boasberg's criminal contempt probable cause hearing. You might have forgotten this one. In April, Judge Boasberg entered an order finding probable cause that the Trump administration committed criminal contempt in his courtroom by flouting his orders in contumacious behavior, violating his order. He said of the 200 people on planes who were Venezuelans being sent to El Salvador and the torture prisons of El Salvador, he ordered the planes grounded. He ordered the flights turned around. None of that happened. We now know why. Because there's a 35-page whistleblower complaint by Erez Ruveni, who had spent 15 years in the Department of Justice. And he said that Emil Bove, who was the number 3 in the Department of Justice, previous to that, Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer, he ordered effectively all of the lawyers to go tell federal judges to go F off. Literally, F off. And that, when I read that in the whistleblower disclosure by Erez Ruveni, as Emil Bove was being confirmed to be a Third Circuit Court of Appeal judge sitting in Philadelphia, I said there's going to be, at the time, I said there's going to be 2 judges that are going to be very interested in Erez Ruveni. One is Judge Boasberg, and the other is Judge Zinnes in Maryland, who presides over the Abrego Garcia case, because it explains a lot. The Trump administration, Department of Justice, literally told lawyers to go tell federal judges to go F off, and that they would not turn planes around, and they would not allow any due process of people who were removed under the Alien Enemies Act. So I was not shocked when I read that after the appellate court finally let Judge Boasberg restart his criminal contempt case, because what happened between April and now, long time, is it was caught up in the morass of appeals. Appeals are over. And they sided ultimately with Judge Boasberg. And they said, okay, do your fact-finding, restart your contempt proceeding. And he's trying to get to the bottom of why and who and how and what they knew and when they knew it about his order to ground the planes and not fly to El Salvador, and why they were violated. Now, later, his order was vacated by the United States Supreme Court, but that doesn't matter, because at the time, they were valid issued orders of a federal judge. And you can't say, well, later on, the Supreme Court overturned it. You have to comply. If you're a co-equal branch of government or otherwise, you got to comply with a federal judge's order. So we're back with that. Now, there's some interesting developments there. The judge said out loud last week, as he's putting the case back together again, I want to hear from Erez Ruveni. So do we. In fact, I have a clip, because Erez Ruveni went on 60 Minutes, and here's a clip of, so you know who I'm talking about, of Erez Ruveni. Let's play the clip.
The Alien Enemies Act allows rapid expulsion from the U.S. of the citizens of enemy nations during a war. But without a declared war, Trump used it against more than 100 Venezuelans that the government said were terrorists. They were to be denied their right to be heard by a judge. Ruveni says Bove expected a challenge.
Bove emphasized those planes need to take off, no matter what. And then after a pause, he also told all in attendance, and if some court should issue an order preventing that, we may have to consider telling that court, you.
And when you heard that, you thought what?
Felt like a bomb had gone off. Here is the number 3 official using expletives to tell career attorneys that we may just have to consider disregarding federal court orders.
Now, Emil Bove, who Erez Raveni says told him and others to tell federal judges to go F off and effectively act in contempt, he was asked the question by Adam Schiff, of all people, the senator from California, during his confirmation hearing. And wait till you hear his response to that. Let's play Emil Bove about whether he told lawyers to tell federal judges to go F off. Let's play the clip.
In the complaint, it says, Bove stated that DOJ would need to consider telling the courts, fuck you, and ignoring any such court order. Did you say anything of that kind in the meeting?
Senator, I have no recollection of saying anything of that kind. To the extent I
Wouldn't you recall, Mr. Bove, if you said or suggested during a meeting with Justice Department lawyers that maybe they should consider telling the court, fuck you? It seems to me that would be something you'd remember, unless that's the kind of thing you say frequently.
Well, I've certainly said things encouraging litigators at the department to fight hard for valid positions that we have to take in defense of our clients.
And have you frequently suggested that they say fuck you and ignore court orders? Is that also something you frequently do, such you might not remember doing it on this occasion?
No, and as I explained, I have never directed...
So did you or did you not make those comments during that meeting?
Which comments, Senator?
You really need me to repeat it? Did you suggest, as Mr. Raveni wrote, that DOJ would need to consider telling the courts, fuck you, and ignore any such court order?
I did not suggest that there would be any need to consider ignoring court orders. At the point of that meeting, there were no court orders to discuss.
Well, did you suggest telling the courts, fuck you, in any manner?
I don't recall.
You just don't remember that.
Now, I had the pleasure of having Lee Gallant, the lead lawyer for the American Civil Liberties Union in this very case, just with me just yesterday with an interview about the case. And right after the interview, he's playing a little coy with me. I was wondering why, because right after the interview, he filed with the federal Judge Boasberg a list of people that he suggests that the judge interview and cross-examine. Emil Bove was up there. So now you got think of the optics. You got a district court judge, chief judge of the D.C. District Court, who the Trump administration hates. They say he coddles terrorists. He's partisan. He's a Republican, by the way. They don't like him because he's the one, when he was as chief judge, he sits over the grand juries. He authorized all those search warrants on the Verizon accounts of the senators and the Congress people who were caught up in the Jan 6th insurrection. So he's got a lot of crosshairs on him. He doesn't care. He's doing his job. And I asked Lee about the case and about this upcoming hearing. And here's a clip from the lead lawyer for the ACLU in the very case that I'm talking about, Lee Gallant. Let's play it. But tell us about how Judge Boasberg actually said those two words. Erez Raveni, it was like Kaiser Soze moment in your hearing.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing is extraordinary, surreal. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. You've been doing it a long time. I mean, this is sort of mind-boggling what's going on. But he came in the hearing on the 19th, just recently, after the Court of Appeals said, you can go ahead, Judge Boasberg. And one of the first things he said is, there's been this whistleblower complaint by Mr. Raveni. We're going to have him as a witness. And, I think that's right. And his complaint names other officials very specifically. So I think Judge Boasberg is saying, look, let's find out what's going on. They told me that they, thought my order didn't apply. Let's really find out what's going on. And was there this meeting where they're going to say F you to the courts? But he absolutely has mentioned Mr. Raveni specifically. And I think his intention right now is to put him on the stand.
I would assume the other half of that equation is somebody like Drew Ensign, who's in the letter, the whistleblower letter.
Yeah. And so, and he was the original lawyer on that emergency Saturday night hearing when the order was issued. So I suspect he will be on Judge Boasberg's mind, and a number of other people. But I think also Judge Boasberg wants to know who else was involved, because at this point, the whistleblower complaint, I don't think names everyone or names titles. And maybe the whistleblower, Mr. Ravaney, doesn't actually know who all the people involved were who made the ultimate decision. So I think there's a lot of fact finding going on. And, and as you know, this issue transcends any particular substantive issue. I mean, if we can't count on the United States Department of Justice adhering to court orders, that's a whole other world we're in.
So what's going to happen? I mean, I think Boasberg is going to do his best job of fact-finding. I think the Trump administration is going to refuse to participate and play in the sandbox. I think they're going to try to take an appeal to the D.C. Circuit Court again, if they can, and try to get that blocked. And they're going to go up to the United States Supreme Court, and they're going to argue that Boasberg's not being nice to them, that the Supreme Court already overturned the underlying order, so they shouldn't be held accountable in contempt because they refused to comply with a unconstitutional order. And we're going to see what the United States Supreme Court does. They rarely back federal judges these days. Maybe Judge Boasberg's different, although I doubt it. Even though he's friends with Roberts, and I think he was the roommate, I think, for Justice Kavanaugh in law school. But it's important. And the specter of seeing Donald Trump trying to hide somebody who's unethical, like Emil Bove, and he got him confirmed at the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, and have him now dragged back and have to testify potentially in a federal court about whether he is one of the people that's in criminal contempt. I mean, it's just sweet justice, don't you think? Welcome back. I sit at the intersection of law and politics every day, every hour. I have a podcast on Tuesday nights called The Intersection, which I do by myself. Sometimes I bring in some great guests to be interviewed. I've got the Legal AF podcast over on the Midas Touch Network, commercial-free versions on Legal AF Substack. And then, of course, I curate every day a dozen videos or so on the Legal AF YouTube channel. We're about to crash through 1 million subscribers with your help in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Check to see if you are already subscribed. If not, become a subscriber to Legal AF YouTube. So until my next report, see me on The Intersection Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. on the Midas Touch Network. I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.